Hi, this is Arun from arunsyoga.in. I'm a software engineer who mostly work with Node.js, PHP, and other backend technologies. And I'm an open source contributor as well. I'm a tantric by birth in a family which is passing tantric wisdom from generations to generations from past 2000 years of legacy, and got lucky to travel across India and got chances to study under various gurus from different backgrounds and disciplines. You could connect with me in arunsyoga.in. Here I'm helping you to design a divine lifestyle which is based on Vedic astrology, tantra, and other yogic system of understanding. Hi all, this is the fourth episode of the Astrology of East and West series. And at this particular podcast, we are digging deep into the chart of 45th American President Donald Trump, along with our favorite Sheila. So, welcome to the Astrology of East and West, episode number 4, Donald Trump. Hi all. Today's particular podcast is quite interesting one. In this particular podcast, we are trying to analyze Donald Trump's chart, both in Eastern and Western way. And yeah, here Sheila with us. Ladies first.
Okay. Well, Donald Trump is not going to be president of the United States from today. So it's a good day to be talking about him. And I feel that now I've done Donald Trump's horoscope, I really understand him as a human being. And I want to start with the 12th house in his chart. There are 12 houses or sections, because it's the 12th house that really causes him the problems. Because actually, the rest of his chart is absolutely brilliant. And he's a very unusual, innovative, interesting guy. And we haven't seen the last of him. So the first thing I want to say is in the 12th house, he has Mars in Leo. Well, of course, he has a Leo ascendant as well. So he has a lot of hair and he's got a bit of a mane on his head. So that's quite interesting. But Mars represents his masculinity. And because it's in the 12th house, it also represents a kind of aggression. And unfortunately for him, it's the only thing that holds him back, because some people find him too much. And he forges ahead. He's very much for, right, let's get it done, let's get it done. And then other times he does not engage when really he needs to engage. And it's the real difficulty that he has. And it's such a pity, because this is a great man. There's no doubt about it. Very unusual man. And so that's him. Yeah, that's I think that's what the problem is with him. But I can't say that he would be my favorite person, but his chart and my chart go very well together. So I guess if I met him, we'd get on well together. He'd like me. And that's because his sun and his moon are right in the central part of my chart. So, but I think that I feel very angry for his sake, that he's been treated so badly by the media, the world's media, because actually he is a phenomenally good man and he loves his country. And the reason why I say that is not only because he says it, but because he has the midheaven in Taurus, and Henry VIII has a very similar chart in that respect. Now, not everybody liked King Henry VIII of England. He had 6 wives and he killed some of them, but we don't forget him. So, and also Henry VIII loved England as Donald Trump loves America. So Shall I just stop now and then Aaron can talk about that and then
Yeah.
I'll move on to the next bit? Yeah.
Um, uh, See, the thing is like what I can see according to Vedic reading, in the 12th house there is Venus and Saturn, which is staying. So it's 12th house is actually it's about moksha or mukti or more in English word it is like liberation. So the guy he who seek his liberation through the energies of Venus and Saturn. So what does it mean? How does it manifest? Is in this way. Saturn, the planet which stands for hard work, and he is a very good hard worker, I believe. And the Venus also is staying on the 12th house, which means that uh, he has a profound interest on uh, the beauty aspect of the life, or he could be a party animal. That's what I can say from his chart.
Well, he
uh,
is.
so this is in the 12th house, and I'm not so clear about what did you said, like 12th house is also in conjunction with Leo. What does it mean? Because Leo is his ascendant. In Vedic chart, how do we treat it? Ascendant is the first house. So what is that like?
Well, he has Mars on the other side of the ascendant in Western astrology, and that's not a good placement for Mars. And it also represents him as a man. So it
No,
means,
what I'm asking is that,
oh,
like, is there two houses in single house? Is that what you mean? Like,
no, no, there are 12 houses, and I started with 12 rather
yeah.
than one because I feel that his Mars in the 12th house is absolutely the reason why, particularly men, don't like him, because it's the house of hidden enemies. And that's why I get angry. It's interesting that I get angry because actually his rage is suppressed and kept under, but I feel angry for his sake because I think that no one human being could be that bad. Um, well, maybe Hitler, but I mean, Trump has not tried to start a war. In fact, there's not been a single war since he became the president of the United States, and he's taken all the troops, American troops, out of every war zone, including Afghanistan. So I find myself being angry at the way he's treated by the media in the world, and he's done so much good for that country, and he's very outspoken, and people don't like it. They say, "Oh no, you can't say that." Well, actually, he has, and a lot of people feel the same, you know. And we have a huge population problem in the world where poor people want to come to rich countries. And for example, in England, we're a very, very small country. You can drive from one end of this country to the other in about 5 hours. And that's not going very fast. We're a very, very small landmass, and we have all these people. And this is the reason why we have this virus, the pandemic, is hitting us very hard because we're all living so close together. And nobody, I don't know why politicians don't say, well, we have a lot of people living in close proximity. It's obvious they're going to catch a virus. So he has taken issue with a number of people coming into the country from Mexico. And he's even managed to make an agreement with the president, I think it's a president or a prime minister in Mexico, to say, yes, we're going to build a wall to stop people pouring in because there's too many drugs and too much crime really coming from Mexico. But, you know, then people start to say, oh, well, that's racist. Well, it's not racist, it's a fact. Poor people will do anything to get money. And that's what we need to think about as a globe. It's a global problem, you know. human beings need to survive, and we need to think about the survival of the poorest people. But America can't take the load anymore.
Yeah.
It's a population problem.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Like there is a lot of, I mean, the cultural difference of the peoples, those who are coming from the other countries, could understand the, misunderstand the cultural freedom which US is actually offering. At the end, it could be like if the peoples are coming from the poor countries, like if they don't have a relative understanding or a unitive understanding of what is this actually all about. It is actually gonna make a problem, and I personally I understand the stance which Trump has taken in the case of refugees coming from other countries, why he is not allowed. All those things if they are not validated well on the scale of philosophical or unitive understanding of what is their culture is offering, it is definitely gonna be a problem for US. Yeah.
yeah, and it's something that perhaps we need to talk about in the world. And I'm just talking with some people about starting another media platform to talk about these things in a way that we're using our brains. We're not just thumping the table and saying, that's wrong, that's a terrible thing to say. That we have to start thinking about each other and doing the best for each other. And that doesn't necessarily mean that somebody has to leave the country of their birth, because, your birthplace is a very important place for you, for me too, any of us. So anyway, shall I move on? Because the second
Yeah.
house, mind you, the first house with Trump is really, I don't have a lot to say because he hasn't got a great emphasis on that. But his second house has got Jupiter and Neptune in it, which means that he's always going to be
Can
rich.
I pursue there? Like, let's move on one by one. Like, what you can see
Okay.
from the first house.
Well, I don't see anything apart from hard work, because he's got the first house in Virgo and he's just a hard worker. And we all agree that. He works hard, he plays hard, and there's no planets there. So I don't, I don't see a huge emphasis on that in his Western astrology. But I do see a huge emphasis on money in his chart, which is the next thing I can talk about.
So when I'm coming to the first house, what I can see, the ascendant, wherever the ascendant, that is the first house, and according to the Vedic understanding. So in the first house, which is Leo, what it does to, how does it manifest in his real life? He is a born leader. uh, he don't entertain much of other people, because he is strong enough to put his idea, which is relatively correct, to manifest it into real way. He is able to do that. So first house, which is also associated, Mars is staying on the first house, which means that he Mars is like the power of war. So he sometimes he forcefully try to embed that whatever comes across in his idea. So this is the one thing I can see from his chart, which is in
It's
first house.
interesting because both of us are correct. But yes, there's a very slight shift in where the planets are. Yeah. Um, shall I talk about the second house now?
Yeah,
Because I'm
exactly.
excited about the second house. So he has Neptune and Jupiter in the second house in Libra. So this means to me that he uh, is generous, extremely generous man. And I've read about him that he gives money to people. For example, I think a taxi, he bought a house for a taxi. There's a noise. He was late for something, and the taxi driver managed to get him to a place on time. So he bought him. People don't about. You have to dig deep and read about him to find out about his private generosity. But also, Jupiter is trine. That means 120 degrees away from Uranus in his chart. So it means that he's also highly unusual, and he's a big tech fan, and he's very, very the new technology, computers, Twitter, all the rest of it is really his thing. And later on, I'm going to talk a bit more about this, but I think that's what he's going to go in for now. I think it'll be interesting to see, but I think by March, April at the latest this year, he will have his own platform. But I think he needs to, I don't know quite how it works, but he won't want to be under the thumb of anybody else. So he'll have his own hosting platform, because that's really, there's a lot of indications in his Western chart that he could do that and be highly influential in the world. So we'll see. But Neptune in his chart is in the second house as well. And that's very important because it means that he's quite spiritual, actually. It means that he understands the concept of what you give is what you receive. So money has never been that important to him. But of course, that's easy to say because he's never been poor. He was born rich. And people say that he's lost all his money and then regained it and lost it again. Then people start saying he hasn't paid his tax. Not really sure about that. I think that he's probably got very good accountants, and that's the reason why he doesn't pay a lot of tax. But he actually, him losing the presidency is nothing to him. It's like, well, onward and upward. What will I do now? And it's really him. He doesn't have, strangely enough, he's a very spiritual, believes in God, very, very firmly believes in God and trusts in God. The other thing that I want to say is there is what we call a square, that's 90 degrees, between Neptune and Mercury in his chart. And that's a little bit problematic because people misunderstand him. And I've got Neptune opposite Mercury in my chart, so I know how he feels, because sometimes I say something and people kind of go, what? And then I have to explain. So he's a little bit the same, but in the main, if he's got Neptune and Jupiter both in the second house, it means that he's the wow factor with money and the wow factor with giving away his money. And this is why I see him doing something associated with technology after this, because he's just a natural, is what he takes to. So that's his second house.
So this is in this Jupiter is staying on the second house. That is actually Dhana Bhava. Dhana Bhava means what is his wealth. So he has immense wisdom. What I could say, Jupiter is the planet of the wisdom, and he who understand the wisdom more will not emphasize money much. Money is the part of implementing the ideas which is coming to his head. That is how he treat the money. Yeah, that is how he treat the money. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Yeah, that's interesting that we both agree. Oh, the other thing I noticed just now is his Jupiter is in Libra in the chart that I've done, which explains why he has gold everywhere in his houses and beautiful furniture, and he has beautiful women. He marries beautiful women. He's a great appreciator of beauty. So yeah, that's another aspect of his personality. Shall I move on to number 3?
Yeah.
I don't have a lot to say about number 3, because there are no, well, the house opposite number 3, number 9, there's a lot going on in Trump's life with regards to that, but we can talk about that later. But in the Western chart, it falls in Scorpio. And so I would interpret that as being interested in deep matters, hidden knowledge, digging out secrets. And of course, there's been a lot of talk about the fact that he knows a lot about other politicians in America who are crooked and bad in a way. They've done some bad things, and he quite enjoys finding out about those things. And there's a question mark about whether he's going to expose people either today or at some point in the next couple of months. I'm not sure if it's today, but it's interesting that there are a lot of troops in Washington at the moment, because if you were a new president and you were going to be arrested, you wouldn't be able to run away if you were surrounded by 25,000 troops. But that's me going to the extreme. I've had a look at all the planetary movements, but I don't think that he's going away quietly, but he's going away with diplomacy. So we don't need to sit down today to watch the new president with a bag of popcorn and think, oh, it's going to be like a film. This is going to be so exciting because he's going to be brought down. But I think that a lot is going to emerge over the next couple of months about the corruption that there is in American politics, and long overdue. That's what I'm hoping. Planetarily, there's a chance of it. So let's hope.
So the third house, there is no planet in his third house. Even though there is no planet, Mercury is having, Mercury is looking on the triangle view on his third house, which is Mercury is standing as a friendly planet, an enemy planet. So into the looking into the third house as an enemy. So one thing is happening is like this is the right time. I mean, he has to watch his speech. The thing, the whatever he is trying to put forth, like what is happening in his inside, the way he is trying to put outside could, through his words, could manifest in the opposite way, which he may not be desired. So like the words that he's trying to put forth has to be watched, otherwise it can turn against him. So that is what the third house is telling to him.
Yes, I agree. The fourth house is in Sagittarius, and in the Western chart, he has the moon in Sagittarius at 21 degrees. And my midheaven, the line going through my chart, is at 23 degrees of Sagittarius. So his moon rests right on my midheaven. So he would really like me. He'd want to give me a hug, and I wouldn't be saying no. And he'd also want to take care of me. So that's just another little thing. Also, his sun is exactly opposite his moon. I find that quite interesting, because maybe he didn't quite know which of his parents to kind of identify with. So he could be placed right between his parents and be thinking, oh, is she right or is he right? Oh, is he right or is she right? You know, it'd be very difficult for him with the relationship with his parents. So his horoscope tells me that. But it also tells me that he loves home life, and maybe what he likes most of all, because the moon is in Sagittarius in the fourth house, is that he likes to sit with his family and exchange ideas. And yesterday I saw an interview with one of his grandchildren, a little girl who's about 11, maybe 12, and she was so much like him. She was punchy and she was coming up with these ideas. And they asked her what were the big problems that America has to face. And she had her own ideas, they weren't his ideas. And it was obvious that she lived in a family where they're accustomed to talking to each other and exchanging information and communicating. So that's, I think, what I would say about him. Um, I don't know. I think he has several houses as well, doesn't he? Actual houses that he lives in. But all of those houses are comfortable for him, and maybe quite, because the moon is in the position that it's in, it's quite possible that he really loves it when they're cooking at home and doing things like that together. So that's what I think about him with the fourth house.
In the fourth house there is moon. Yeah, exactly. In here also the moon is standing on the fourth house along with the Ketu. So how does the probability to manifest? It's like the fourth house is the house of enemy, and the planet moon is his mother. So I don't know what is that happening. Is there any problems is happening or something like that? Like one of his parent, like. Or it could be divine feminine also, like existence is women is Kali. So he has um, he might arise develop some problem with femininity.
Yes. Well, I picked up about the relationship between both his parents. Um, I could see that there's probably a lot of talking and a lot of arguing and a lot of ideas flying around between his parents. Um, and I understand what you mean about the goddess Kali, the mother who gives, but the mother who takes as well. Um, but I might not have gone so far in my interpretation. But it's interesting that the themes that you and I are talking about are very, very similar, even though we do it a different way. Shall I talk about the fifth house?
Yeah.
Well, the fifth house represents hobbies, fun, children, love affairs, and although there are no planets in there in this Western chart, uh, the transits are important to think about, because there have been a lot of planets that have been passing through Trump's fifth house over the last 10 years. So they're just finishing now. And these massive configurations in the sky, Pluto, Jupiter, Saturn, all in Capricorn, I think that he has considered being president of the United States as a kind of dream experience. So I can't say, I think he's been more playful than usual as a president, because it's been such a new thing for him. And so it's helped him grow in creative ways, in ways that he could never have imagined. But I feel that now, because Saturn is moving into the sixth house, and there's the moon is in Aquarius, just beginning his sixth house, actually today, that he's moving into a new phase, and he's quite happy about that. He's thinking, well, that was an interesting experience being president, and it's made him grow as a person, because he's had so many things to think about. But now he doesn't tend to be a person who looks back. Yeah, and the other thing that I want to say is, because it's the fifth house, it also represents children. And because all of these big planetary configurations, the biggest configuration for 2,000 years has occurred this year, well, last year and this year, that it's about his children. And I think being president and having his family on side with him has completely transformed his relationship with his children. And actually, he mentioned his children in his speech yesterday, which I thought was interesting, to say how helpful they've been and how proud he is of them. And I don't think that before he was president, his relationship was so close as it is now. So there's been many advantages for him, this experience. But I think that he's been very open to his attitude towards being president, in the sense that he's only just now going to start hard work again. I think he's just seen it as a massive paintboard, you know. Oh, I could splash a bit of red on there and I could do green over here. And he's loved it. But now he's back to, right, what am I going to do next? And he's quite excited about it as well. So that's what I think about the fifth house.
Yeah, here in the fifth house, one, two, three, fifth house, which is there is no planet actually, but Mars is having a look on fifth house. So the problem which could arise, he might have he could develop yeah, problems with his offsprings. He could fight
Mm.
with his offspring.
Mm. I think he probably would, but because of the planetary situation passing by, that has helped to change things and develop things for him. I mean, of course, the media, or some of the media are in America, are already saying, oh, Ivanka's not going to have a job. She's been flying on her father's coattails. It's a disgrace. They need to be regulated and sorted out, because this what they say has a massive influence on millions and millions of people, and it's rubbish. I mean, she's been a businesswoman for years. She'll be fine. You know, when you have that amount of money, it takes quite a lot to bring you down. And like her father, I don't think she'd be too worried anyway. I mean, just rubbish, you know, that they're whipping up this idea that there's going to be trouble ahead and all that kind of stuff. I think that the experience of them working together over the last 4 years has changed things for them in a good way. But I agree with you. Otherwise, they would have been at loggerheads with each other.
Yeah, moving to the sixth house.
Sixth house, in Western astrology, we call that health and work. So Saturn's moved into Donald's sixth house, so he might be feeling a bit tired, but luckily he's got bags of energy normally, so I can't see him being dragged down by that. But he's actually focusing from today. He'll be focusing and saying, well, time to start working again. And because this moon today is in Aquarius, then I think it's to do, his sixth house is in Aquarius and the moon is in Aquarius. So we've got like a double influence of technology, new ideas, age of Aquarius, all that kind of stuff. So that's why there's another thing going on with Uranus, which links where his natal Uranus is placed in his chart, linking in with Aquarius. There's a lot going on there, which I'll talk about later. But basically, there's a lot of indicators here that he could be starting some kind of media platform and something a bit more secure. He doesn't ever want to be in the position where he just gets knocked off a platform like Twitter. I mean, it makes everybody think, you know, if the president of the United States, which is a massive, massive country, it's a continent really, it's huge. If he could be knocked off a media platform, then anybody could. Just because he says what he says, you know, free speech is disappearing And I think that he's possibly looking at this. I'd be surprised if he didn't do something about it and start his own media company or something similar.
Yeah, he got banned from Twitter and other things now.
Yeah.
um, so the sixth house, what I can see is like it's a the problems that could it's again enemy's house. So what is happening here is like Rahu is having a look on sixth house and he is into Rahu Mahadesha. So how does it gonna manifest is like uh, he is gonna get more interested into spiritual aspect, like things to do with the spirituality, magic and stuffs like that in this period. So that is how it's gonna manifest in this chart.
That's interesting. Because when he made another speech yesterday in front of the people in the open air. So it wasn't his official speech, it was another speech. And he was talking about God, and he said, everything rests with God. We're in the hands of God now. And then he made a joke. But you see, this is where people misunderstand him, because he's actually a very humorous man. And his wife says that about him. She says that's why she married him, because he's so funny. And he said, well, people say I'm the most famous person in the world, but I'm not, because Jesus is more famous than me. Now, some people say, how dare he compare himself to Jesus? It's a joke,
No, I
because
mean,
actually,
uh, what I can see is that Trump personally may not be attracted to the mainstream Christianity. He is more into Genosis Christianity, like it has to do more with magic and things like that. So that kind of practices
well,
are. What's that?
no, I was going to say, people are saying that there's, all kinds of black magic going on behind the scenes. Well, I don't know. Maybe it is. I don't tend to be so extreme in my thoughts because I don't know. I don't have proof. But maybe he is realizing. I saw somebody talking about him, and they said that he knew that government was corrupt in America, but he didn't realize how corrupt, how deep it went until he became president. So maybe he started to think about other ways of bringing spirituality into your life in a negative way. You know, maybe he's beginning to realize it now that it actually exists. You know, um, strange because something happened to me years and years ago. My television started to flash on and off, and the lights kept flashing in the house. And I asked a couple of people from a local spiritualist church. So they believe in God and they say prayers, but they also believe that you can talk to people who have passed over and died. So anyway, they came to the house and they were talking about levels. And they sat in my office and they said, oh, there's a level 1 and a level 4 and a this and a that. And I was thinking, oh, it's a bit strange. But anyway, they said, give it 2 days. By Wednesday, everything will be cleared. And on the Wednesday, I turned the light on and it didn't flash anymore. And the television stopped going on and off. So I don't know. But it's interesting because there's been talk amongst some people about levels of satanic force or negative energy, whatever you want to call it,
See
that
the
exists. So I don't know.
No, the problem with the mainstream Christianity is like they understand the forces of dark in a very different way, because that is how they programmed people. Like they killed so many women, those who actually manifest the divine feminine. They called them witches, and they
Yeah.
told them they are doing witchcraft and stuffs like that, and they killed so many women. So it's a kind of giving wrong I mean, this is how the peoples got manifested, that the energies, the deep level of energy is actually dark, or it has to be it is gonna harm us, like so because that mainstream Christianity is divided existence into two, that Semitic religion, there is something good and there is something bad, and they said it is satanic, this is Jesus, or this is godly, divine. So
And
this is
nothing in
the,
between.
yeah, this is the idea. But if we see the universe as a large, the place we live, it is like the which has the light is actually relatively very less, the dark is the more. If we take the relative mass of the universe, the if we take the nebula is very small part of the entire existence. So I mean, the understanding of our own understanding will evolve according to the way which we see the things, you know. So but however, the deep like always LSD is better drug than that of weed. If we see in that way, like it is gonna give a um very deep understanding. I'm not trying to put the drugs into a different kind of level or whatever, but if we go really deep, the deep energies can enlighten people very fast, you know what, because it, and also it can drive people's crazy also, like that is why people say it
Oh,
is
I absolutely agree with you. I absolutely agree that
so
because
that is why people say the tantra, the Atharva Veda, which deals with all kind of occult practices, the tantra also comes into that thing. So people are very conservative about this. If you are not in a such a level of understanding, you should not practice these practices, because it is like a sword, it can drive you crazy also, it can enlighten you also, you know. So if you are not into certain understanding, you should not touch it. But in the case of him, the Donald Trump, the person who is having such understanding and such amount of worldview, it's like Genosis Christianity suits better to him, like rather than that of the mainstream Christianity, which divided the understanding into two, basically like Semitic Christianity, like this is something good and this is something bad in that way. So I
there are
think
two things.
this is
Oh,
the in this time he's developing that kind of
yeah,
magical things more into.
exactly. All of those things are going through his mind and he's thinking about them. Yeah, I absolutely understand. And also, it's interesting to hear you talking like that because I developed that idea myself over the years because I also, as well as being an astrologer, I am a therapist for people with mental health problems. And I've had the most profound experiences with really disturbed people because they're tuned in on quite a high level and they'll say something very, very profound and something they've noticed that a lot of people wouldn't notice, but it's because they're not quite ready for it. They're not developed enough that it's affected them mentally. I absolutely understand what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I think there is a big link between jumping into these spiritual depths when you're not ready and actually losing your mind.
Yeah.
So that there's another discussion we can have. So, shall I move on to the seventh house?
Yeah, exactly.
Seventh house is relationships generally. And what's interesting to me is that there are no planets in there in the chart that I have, but Neptune has been passing through Trump's seventh house. And so I would say that as far as his marriage is concerned, that maybe they have had, or he has had some doubts or confusion. But if I actually did put Melania's chart and Donald's chart together, and they've got a very long lasting relationship. They've got a Saturn Venus connection, which will probably bring them through over the years, no matter what problems they have. But they've also, in their joint chart, got a Pluto. All of these big planetary transits have gone through their 12th house jointly. So they've probably developed a much deeper relationship because of him being president, but it has had its problems and its ups and downs. And one of the things that I heard yesterday in his speech was that he thanked the Secret Service in America for looking after his wife and looking after him. And there has been news of the fact that somebody tried to kill his wife. They tried to poison her. They put something on her nail varnish bottle. And he's had a couple of attempts on his life that we haven't heard about before. So that's why he said, I want to thank the Secret Service for looking after us. So it's all very Neptunian, meaning what happened there? How do we get to here? Well, what's going on? That's happening for him quite a bit. So that's
So
my
yeah,
take.
seventh house actually it stands for a relationship. I mean the relationship which he is having. Like in seventh house, there is no planet actually in here also. But even though there is no planet, Mercury is looking on this particular seventh house. So how does it manifest? Is like he is someone who is having very much of self control in the case of relationship. He may not jump into women just like that, and the women, she is able to satisfy him through speech or intellectual capability. So that is gonna stick with him. That particular woman is gonna stick with him for a long time.
Yeah,
So yeah.
she's a very intelligent woman. Have you heard any of her speeches? She makes the most amazing speeches.
No, I
And
never.
she's worked very hard, done a lot of charity work while she's been First Lady. So, yeah, I agree with you. We got there by a different route, but same conclusion. Number 8, that's an interesting one. Number 8 is about deep, hidden psychological aspects of life. It's in Aries. So I look at Mars in his chart and I think he probably suffers at times as a result of his, what's the word I want to use to describe it? He can be a bit blunt, a bit blustery, a little bit clumsy. And I think that he realizes that he needs to manage that, and he's managing it better than he did when he was younger, but it's like a daily battle for him. And that's really all I want to say about the 8th house.
So in the eighth house, eighth house, there is Venus along with the Saturn is looking. There is no planet on the eighth house, but the Venus along with the Saturn is looking. So the thing is like, what does it means? Is like it's an enemy aspect which is looking. So he need to watch out his work. Sometime what does it means is like, he is very hardworking person, so he may go so crazy while working, and he is someone who likes a lot of luxury, and the luxury which he is accumulating on his life, he may go crazy over it. So these two things he has to watch out. So that is what 8000 is
Yeah,
saying.
I think that's always underlying in his life. Yeah, yes, I understand what you mean. Ninth house. The ninth house is the house of learning and travel, and it's the house of, in Western astrology, long journeys. Now, interestingly enough, today Mars is just into the ninth house at 6 degrees in Taurus. So that means that he's on a huge learning curve. And Mars will move across his midheaven And that's the reason why I say that we're going to hear from him again in March, April time, maybe the end of February, but certainly March, April, because Mars will be on his midheaven. And at the moment, Mars and Uranus are moving together in the universe, and Mars and Uranus together are highly creative and kind of sudden. So not only is it affecting Donald Trump, but it's affecting the whole world. So it's quite possible that there will be sudden, unexpected revelations, things happening, things starting all of a sudden and things ending all of a sudden. And that is particularly important for him, because I think that the next couple of months, he is going to be on a massive learning curve, starting something new. And there's going to be things left over from being president that will come to light all of a sudden. So we'll turn on the television and it will be, and then that's happened, and now this has happened. So when he's not finished yet.
So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, ninth house. There is Sun along with the Rahu is staying, and also this is the Rahu Dasha. Yeah. So this is like a profound. Like, what does it mean? Is like um, this is like Rahu is he is into Rahur Mahadasha also, and that particular house is gonna get activated. So that is his dharma. So it's for sure that he will. I can blindly say he will get attracted to the Genosis Christianity, like magical aspect of spirituality. It's I mean, what I can see is like Genosis Christianity is uses a lot of magical practices, I think, rather than that of the mainstream Christianity. Um, so it's like he tried to take a lot of magic into his life, like going deep into thinking and introspection and things like that. That is what it is for sure. Like, that's what I can see in his.
Yeah, maybe he's seeing a psychic at the moment. Maybe he's talking to somebody and saying, what do you think? What do you think is going to happen now? Possibly, yeah. It's definitely learning about new things. There's no doubt about it. It's probably learning about lots of different things. I feel that because the moon has just gone into Aquarius today, that it's actually thinking about how he can get his message across to the world, because he's been taken off these media platforms. So he's the kind of person who will say, I just make my own. I'll have control over it then. If we move on to the 10th house, his 10th house basically starts in Taurus, which shows his love of country, but then moves into Gemini. And largely his 10th house is in Gemini, and he has Uranus right on the midheaven. Uranus is unusual. It's definitely ahead of its time. It's full of energy. It's a bit unsteady at times, but it gets things done. And he's lucky because he's got a Saturn connecting with his Uranus, which stops him going right over the edge. But I think that's why I'm saying he's going to get involved in media stuff and something to do with electronics and the computer age, because he's a techie at heart. He's very interested in all of that. And he's very, very original and eccentric. Some people would say he's a little bit eccentric. But then I have Uranus in a prominent place in my chart, which is why I'm an astrologer. Maybe he's going to go and see an astrologer. Wish it was me. But anyway, all of those things are possible at the moment. But this is why I'm saying that by March at the latest, beginning of April, there's so many indicators here because he's got Mars and Uranus passing in the heavens in this part of his chart, but he's also got Mars hitting his natal Uranus in his chart. So it's like a double energy of here he is again, doing this other thing and that thing too, and that one. So he hasn't got very long actually to develop all this. But I think that it's possible that over the last 18 months, he's been thinking about a lot of new ideas anyway. Um, the only thing that he has to be careful of is that he doesn't get exhausted because it's so exciting to him. And it might mean that it upsets his sleep levels. And you know, he's quite an old man. I think he's 73 or 74, so he has to be a little bit careful. But what an amazing man for his age, because he's so full of energy, really.
Yeah.
He thrives on just getting things done and having an influence. He also has the North Node in Gemini, which means it's kind of like his soul's path is to be influential. He has the Sun in the 10th house as well, which links in with the Leo part of him, his Leo ascendant, meaning he loves being in the public eye. He just, and I have a friend actually who has the Sun in the 10th house, and she works on television, but she just loves staring into the camera and being center of attention. She just loves it. So there we are. That's Trump as well. So yes, he's got a lot going on in the 10th house over 2021. So that's why I say he's not disappearing into a hole in the ground. Definitely not.
Yeah, the 10th house here also, it's a saying, for me also it is saying like, it's again saying me that spiritual aspect of, I mean, it is strong from his chart reading. What I can see is that he is trying to conclude whatever he has gone through. Yeah, he is a quite eccentric man because he has a very different combination of the Saturn along with Venus on the first house. So it's like, yeah, it's so usual that he will not go through a hard life. Like, it's always he will be blessed with a lot of money, a lot of women, a lot of things, whatever it is. Like, he's actually blessed with all those things. But yeah, so the same thing, I don't have much to say about that.
Mm.
Let's move to.
House 11. Now, in the chart that I've done, there are a lot of planets here as well. So he's got Mercury and Saturn in the 11th house. That would convey, it's in Cancer. So it conveys to me that he tries to be kind when he speaks. He tries to show that he cares. He's quite serious minded in many respects, even though he's a joker. And he's always been somebody who, it's a group thing, the 11th house. So it's anything to do with groups and friendships. So maybe when he was at school, I don't know this about him, but maybe he was a bit of a leader. Even then, he was a leader from a very, very early age. And quite often, when people have Saturn in the 11th house in Western astrology, they might be a prefect at school. You know, a prefect is somebody who's the head child in the year, and they're the child that stands up and gives a presentation or gives out gifts or something like that. Oh, is that traffic at your end?
What's that?
Is that traffic at your end?
Uh, one second. Is that clear
Stop.
now?
Yeah. Oh no. Gone. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
I see
so,
him as a leader, somebody who speaks sensibly, who tries to be kind, all of that kind of thing. Yeah.
um, Venus.
Oh, can I say one more thing? I've
Yeah.
just noticed he also has Venus in the 11th house, and Saturn and Venus are very close together. So that means that he's a very loyal person in relationships. There's been a big scandal about an affair that he had about, I don't know, 14 years ago. Well, yes, he might have had an affair, but basically, he would not divorce willingly. He's somebody who likes to have a wife, and he's somebody who likes to remain loyal to that wife if he can. Unfortunately, because he's got Uranus in a prominent place in his chart, all these women throw themselves in his path. So actually, considering what he's up against, he manages it all quite well, really. He likes women, he likes to be friends with them, but when he's married to somebody, he really does try to be loyal to his wife. So he's not a womanizer. He likes women. That's the difference.
No, he is self-conscious. I can see that. He won't throw himself up into any woman until at last she is able to feed him so much intellectually.
Yes, yes, and I think there's been interviews with both of them where it seems to be like a mind connection that they have, and
Hmm.
that's why they're attracted to each other, because they love exchanging ideas and talking about things and getting in the mind of each other. So yeah, I agree with that. And possibly that's the reason why he got divorced twice, because both of his wives were extremely beautiful and reasonably intelligent, but Melania is far more intelligent than either of them. I don't mean that in a derogatory way, it's just a fact. And that's why he's wanting to last with her. Of course, the media are talking about them getting a divorce, and that's just one person that worked for Melania, I think, who probably had an argument with her or something and says, that she hates him. Well, I'd be surprised if anything happens there. I think they're together until death parts them, really. Um,
Um,
yeah. So we're
okay.
back to the 12th house again. I did miss something in the 12th house, because
Mhm.
he also, in the Western chart, he has Pluto in the 12th house as well as Mars. So that
We don't
would
have
mean,
Pluto.
yeah, that actually I think he digs deep. And I think that's why he's possibly he's often said, oh, this person needs to be arrested, that person needs to be put into prison. And the 12th house is the house of prisons. So I think that maybe there will be some people arrested. And there's also a big court case in America that's just started with Ghislaine Maxwell. It started yesterday. How strange that it happened the day before he stops being president. And there's a lot of very murky, nasty stuff that has gone on in Ghislaine Maxwell's life. And when she was in a relationship with Epstein. So we'll see what happens. But I think he smells a rat very easily. Trump's very good at kind of watching and listening. And then he says, oh, I smell a rat. I think we'll investigate that. He loves to investigate and dig deep. So I think there's more to be heard about the dirty dealings of politicians. Oh,
So,
that,
from the 12th house, it's a house of moksha. So, what I can see is that whatever he has done is actually leading him to the moksha, moksha called the liberation.
mm,
So he walked his way to liberation. Like it's a hard work, and it is liberation through pleasure. That's what his way actually. That's what he has walked through. Yeah.
yeah. So let's just see what happens, because I think he's not gone. People say that he will be president again. I'm not sure about that, because looking at this Western chart, I'm thinking, has he got the energy now? But certainly he's going to be very prominent, and not disappearing, and very influential. I'd certainly go on a media platform that he was hosting. No problem at all. You know, after something like that happens to a person, they kind of treat people in the way that they would want to be treated, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
It's he represents, I think, with the Uranus in his chart very prominent, he represents the shake up of the world. Come on, get rid of the rubbish, clear up the house, tidy up your act, put the cushions straight, put everything in a row. That's what he's about. And I think that he has fulfilled his role in that sense, his karmic role, to make the American system different from it has been in the past. We hope.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't think it's going to be a smooth run for Biden at all. So we finished with Donald Trump,
Yeah.
but not really. Maybe we'll be talking about him again in another month.
What's that?
I said maybe in another month we'll be talking about him again.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to my podcast. You could connect with me in arunsyoga.in, where you could see my contact details, including my phone number, my WhatsApp, and email ID. Stay tuned for more exciting episodes.